put a claim against it. Here you sort of have the state indemnity, and Ruoff and Roper will talk a bit about that, and actually how you can claim from the land registry and other state funds. And I think that it's also interesting that title indemnity for known flaws has also existed here for a long time. So when I refer to title insurance generally in the kind of interesting growth area, and we talk about that operating income in the U.S., that's primarily for the piece which is of unknown flaws. So today, anyway, setting the scene in Europe, again, from my point of view, personally, it seems that we sort of have a similar state in the wild, wild west of the wild east of Central and Eastern Europe, where actually you do have individuals with very young title systems who actually could use this type of protection on an owner-occupier level. Whereas in the western part of Europe, you have more institutions who are looking to benefit from how can we blanket, portfolio with title insurance and, drive down the operating yield or drive down the risk on a bond portfolio, for example. So anyway, with me this evening, I'd like to welcome Brian Crystal. He's Commercial Director of Bright Red. That stands for Real Estate Due Diligence. It's a division of First Title, which is a division of First American. Brian is I asked Brian for his bio. He's sent me back a very honest bio. He said, I'm a combination of a lawyer and economist who met the people setting up a UK arm of a major US insurer about 10 years ago and liked the idea. I guess you could say I learned about insurance, especially underwriting, the same way an avalanche victim learns about snow. I set up our business in Scotland and moved to underwriting director for the UK company. I was also involved in assessing European countries for addition to the list of places where we trade. So he's involved in brokerage, also allowed to deal with non-title risks associated with property transactions, and is now involved in the process of moving back into developing a structured approach to using insurance in large property portfolio deals. Formerly, Brian has graduated from the University of Glasgow, LLB in Scots Law, a master's with honors in political economy and politics, and slightly more recently at the University of Edinburgh, diploma in legal practice, and is a member of the Law Society of Scotland. Rodolfo Rivera joins us. Has come in from Missouri to speak to us today, not just here, but on a greater trip around Europe and various other places. Rodolfo, I always call you Rudy, so I don't know if it reminds you. Okay, I'm going to go by Rudy. Rudy is graduated from Ohio Northern University with a dual major in Spanish and political science, and in 1980 graduated from St. Louis University School of Law. At St. Louis University, Rudy was assistant managing editor of the St. Louis University Law Review, founder and president of the International Law Society. And he also studied international law at The Hague during the summer of 1979. And prior to joining the Global Solutions team at Fidelity National Financial, he was in practice with an emphasis on transaction work in Latin America. So without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to Brian, who's going to take you through some of the sort of grassroots of what's going on in Europe and sort of the evolution from being a regular title guy to being a bright red guy. And
I didn't think the name of
it. And then what we're going to do is maybe come from a different approach. And just the backdrop to this is that First Title has offices in many different small offices all across across Europe. There's Rudy and Fidelity National Financial typically have followed American money out of America and into wherever it's gone. So it's kind of a different channel and a different approach to the markets. So over to you.
pretty well covered the ground for me already, James, so I'll do the best. It's interesting for me because normally if we're asked to do these sorts of things, it's to cover the nuts and bolts of how things work. It's usually very specific, and how do we underwrite specific problems, and it's usually for lawyers, and they've all got real problems in their minds. So this is nice to be able to do it in a more general way. I want to look at three main subjects which are up on the screen there. What is title insurance? I don't know if any of you have any familiarity with it. I know one of you has. I don't know about the rest of you, so I'll work on the basis that you don't know very much about it. I look at how it's used in different parts and how it evolved in different parts of the world. Two main parts of the world, the US and the UK. And then how is it changing? A few numbers. James mentioned some numbers. A while ago when I did a talk for some brokers in the Netherlands, I wanted to get their attention because I wanted them to understand this is actually a big business. So we looked at our own parent company accounts and what we knew about our market share. And we worked out that 2005 global premium income from title insurance was probably around about $17 billion. And that sounds quite close to what you'd said. The interesting thing, from my point of view, was that I would guess about 90% of that was generated in North America. That's a guess, but it's a reasonably well-educated guess. So if we assume that the US market won't shrink, and that we can apply that sort of approach in other countries, then obviously it's a business with a very large growth potential. And that's where I should have. This is why I hate these things. So the global market, that's the size of the global market, I would guess. But what is title insurance? Well, is it a definition? It's my own definition, but I think everybody will recognise it. And wherever the concept of title insurance is used, it's got the same fundamental meaning. It gives an owner of an interest in land an indemnity against financial loss which is caused either by a lack of ownership or a lack of a right to use the interest in the land. And that lack can arise either for known or unknown reasons. Known or unknown at the time that you take out the insurance. And James mentioned that previously. And each part of the definition has got a particular interest, significance, and it's maybe worth just spending a few minutes on it. The ownership of an interest in land can cover a wide range of things, and the obvious one is the way that I own the title to my house. That's simple ownership. But I can also own other rights to do with that land. I can own the mineral rights underneath it. You can own the house on the top, I own the minerals underneath. A tenant owns an interest in the land. He owns his interest in the lease. And so does the person who gives me takes a mortgage from me. They own the mortgage in my land. And a person who has a right of access over my land owns an interest in the land too. But all of these can coexist in the same piece of land at the same time. And all of them can be insured separately, and frequently are insured separately by us, or insured as part of a package. So I could show you an analysis of a risk in a property in England, say, and you would recognise all of these all happening at the same time. Insurance is used also to protect the use of land. I might want cover in case somebody who owns the land next door to me wants to enforce a covenant, and that's the most common risk, certainly in England. Somebody wants to enforce a covenant and stop me changing the use of my land, stop me turning this place into a hotel. That's a very common problem in commercial property. Or I might be concerned that someone will try and use a right which was previously reserved out of the title, for example, to come and extract minerals from under my land. And that again is not an uncommon risk. Titles will reserve rights to work with minerals. And we have to find ways of underwriting that, be comfortable with it. So you go ahead and